Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this another session of acing the coding interviews. I am Vishwa Mohan. I give you a warm welcome to all of you here. I think this is the second session on this one. The first one we had around a kind of ask me anything round in which I was taking few of the questions from you folks and I tried to answer most of them. So ideally, this is the beginning of this course. Before I start, let me quickly introduce myself. So I am Vishwa Mohan, and I bring with me close to like 9+ years of work experience working in this IT industry. I'm passed out from IIT BHU, and after passing from the IIT BHU, Oracle was the first company which I joined in. So as you must be knowing, Oracle is a database giant. Once I moved from the Oracle, I actually started working for PayPal, which is again a market leader in the payment domain. And then I succinctly worked for some time for Amazon, and then I moved to the Walmart.com. So there I work for the e-commerce domain, and currently I work for the world's largest professional network, which is LinkedIn. So fortunately, unfortunately, during all this period of 9 years of time, somehow I was lucky enough to work in all the major pillars of this IT sector. So with all this journey of last 9 years, and apart from that, I have been helping students and professionals crack their dream job on the different platforms. I think that I can bring something on the table to help you guys understand what it takes to make a good mark in this IT industry. And with all that vision and thanks to great learning, they have brought a great platform which is the people can like us can share our experience with you folks. We have come up with this course in which we're talking about what it takes actually to crack these coding interviews. Okay, so this is the whole purpose of this whole session is. And in the next coming 10-12 sessions which we'll be having, we'll be talking about around this only. So you guys can take the best opportunity out of it to ask as many questions that you have. And I'll try my best to give you most honest and the practical advices which I feel if somebody knows from the advance itself, it will really help them to crack their dream job. Said that, this is a brief introduction of me. I think let's get started. And meanwhile, whenever you have any questions around this, the today's session, or anything that we are teaching, or anything that we are talking about, or anything in the that you want me to cover in the coming sessions, please feel free to write messages on the YouTube. I'll be picking up the messages throughout this whole session, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Said that, let's get started. The today's agenda, I think this is of the first session for acing the coding interview. I'd like to first try to set up that basically 3 questions around any coding interview. That what is a coding interview, why it is being done, and how do we prepare for that. So that is first thing that I like to set the expectation right. Then if you are a fresher, then you might be very anxious about what to prepare and what to expect in a coding interview. Even if you have a few years of time, then also that question might be in your mind. Or if you are someone who's working on some another field, right? Maybe you are a QA and you want to move into the development, or if you are someone who is working in a service-based company and still wants to make a big mark in a product-based company, or you're already working in some good product-based companies but want to move into a FANG, the company like Facebook, Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn, right? So if you have those things in mind, throughout all these coming 10 sessions, I'll be talking briefly, taking up your questions and helping you understand that what exactly it takes practically, not theoretically and not the bookish language, which you can find on the internet. I'll try to be more honest and the practical opinion that what actually it takes to go there, right? And then I'll also be talking about, how to approach a problem in the interview. See, I personally believe, normally if you go and ask anyone, they will tell you, an interview is being driven by an interviewer. Okay, but I personally believe it is an interview giving is an art, and if you know it as an interview, if you know that how to drive an interview, that is when you can crack any interview with the great confidence. So throughout this session, we'll also be talking about those nuances, those points which gives you that confidence that whenever you're going in an interview with certain with the subtle things that if you keep in the mind, and with all the preparation that you will do throughout these sessions, you'll be able to drive the session in the best of your capability, so that you give interview in the areas in which you are strong at, right? So we'll try to talk about those things also. So basically today's session will be about that, and we'll also think about and talk about the different topics that we're going to cover in the coming days. So this is all about the today's session. And throughout this, when I'm preparing all these things, These are the topics that will be covered. Like for example, we'll be covering about the data structures, understanding when to which data structures, algorithm, and understanding the implementation details. So for example, if you are someone who are just starting, and you are just thinking about, what should I do? For example, if you are in second year of engineering or third year of engineering, or maybe the final year, or a few people have already started working in your session and not very clear of, what should I do to get a grand job, to get a, something to talk about, right? So on a hindsight, just far as the coding round is concerned, the topic which is needed is, first one is the data structure. So you have to be very good on it. Not only understand, solving the question the data structure will do, you need also understand, when to use which data structure. So that is another important thing. The third thing is around the algorithm. So we need to understand the different kind of algorithms. So throughout this session also, right, we'll try to pick few of the patterns and we'll try to understand, how algorithm is very important in solving any problem. And just the name of the algorithm will not suffice. Rather, we'll also have to understand, what are the implementation details of all the algorithms, right? Said that, if you can see in the bottom, I have written, all these things are fair enough, but the most important thing is the presence of mind. How you bring your mind to the best of use in the interview will actually, make a real mark in the interviews, right? So these are the things that you should keep in mind while you're preparing for the coding. Now, if you have any questions around these, please feel free to put that into the comments and I'll try to take it from there. Okay. The second most common question that I have been hearing from the students whenever I interact with them in any webinar or any 101, right? They feel that, when they solve the problem in the home, it's pretty simple. They are able to solve it very easily. But the same problem somebody asks from them in the interviews, then that is how it's become tricky. Now, how to overcome this, interview fear? So whenever somebody asks me this question, right, one thing I blatantly tell to him that, the only reason that you're fearful is that you feel that someone is doing some kind of, giving you some kind of chance to write the, to come and prepare for the interview. First of all, we should accept one thing is that as much as we are looking for a job with the same disparity, right, with the same urgency and with the same, requirement, that company is also looking for a right fit. So it's not only that, I am getting benefit when I'm looking for a job. At the same time, the company where you are interviewing is also equally benefited. So it's a win-win situation for both of us. It's just not that, if I'm going to for an interview, it's only for my thing that they all are sitting there. They are doing duty and they're also eagerly waiting for someone to join their team. So this is one thing. So second thing is that, if you are fearful, if you are anxious, you cannot do anything good, but one thing that you can do for sure is that bad for yourself. So, just try to introspect yourself and just try to, make yourself understand that, if you are anxious about something, if you're fearful of the interview, one thing for sure is that you are definitely going to bad in the interview, right? And there's no way that it can be, done good. So my idea is that, whenever you're going for an interview, just think that this is not the end of the world, right? This is not the end of the life. And there are so many companies out there in the market, right? So you just go and try to give your best. Don't try to, cheat anything. Don't try to make out anything in the interview. Try to just be yourself, what you have done. So don't try to be as real to yourself. And that is the key. If you try to be as real to yourself, automatically the confidence will come into you. And, you'll be able to do it properly, right? So try to be as normal as you are. And try to practice as much as possible beforehand before going to the interview, right? It's a very famous proverb that, the more you bleed in the training, the less you bleed in the warfield or the battlefield, right? So try to practice as much as possible. Think that interview is as normal as anything. It's just a two-way communication, right? And go and get with the confidence. And just think that this is not end of the world. If suppose you are not selected in a particular interview, it doesn't mean that you are bad or, it might happen that just, the requirements were not aligned with what you had, right? It doesn't at all mean that, you are not good enough for that particular interview. So the next question is that, many of the folks has, so I'll pick up a question. So I have a question here. Ravi is asking, from where should I start having 4 years of experience as front-end developer to place into tech giant company? Okay, so Ravi, I understand with this 4 years of your experience, now at least you would have a clarity that where you are more interested in. And I'm hoping that since for the last 4 years you have been working into the front end, so you must be trying to continue in the front end itself. If not, that is not the case, please write in the comments. But if you are, if you have already decided that you have to move into the front end, I think, uh, with more experience, I feel, the people should try to, have more depth instead of trying to learn n different things and trying to become a jack of all trade. Try to focus on one particular area. So for example, if you have some interest in, say, maybe you are working on Angular, or if you're working on the React, try to go a little depth inside it. Try to understand how internally the Angular works, or how internally the React works, right? And being a senior engineer, you're also expected to, develop a design thinking, whether it's a front end, whether it's a back end, whether it's a big data, doesn't matter. If you are some senior engineer and you want to look yourself into SUA for architect someday in some good tech company, you should have a design thinking. So I'll suggest is that, try to get more depth into the domain in which you are more interested in. And if it is a front end, I'll try to say, whatever tech stack that you're working on, try to go deep inside that. Try to understand how it internally works. And at the same time, whatever product that you're working in, try to think holistically about it. Always be curious that why something is used, why something is not used, right? And then accordingly, based on your area of interest and expertise, try to go deep inside it, and then try to look out, which all companies will make justice to your talent, and then try to move into that direction. I hope that answers your question. So there's a question that writing more programming languages in resume leads to a get high salary. Malika. So let me tell you one thing. I think this is the one of the biggest confusion that the peoples are having. And I don't know for what reason people think so. What they do is that there's a great confusion going right now in the market that, if you put so many things in the resume, it will make you get shortlisted fast. This is one thing. And secondly, they feel that if I show that I know so many things, I will be paid more. But let me tell you, if you go for any high paying company, or any good tech giant, right? Take the example of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, any company as such. Trust me, in none of their rounds, there will be a single question based on the language. There's no language specific round in any of these companies. And these are one of the best payers in the market right now. Similarly, if you take any top startup, right? For example, Uber, I don't know if you'd consider Uber as a startup or not, but I still do. Or any other startup like this, for example, Swiggy. I think Swiggy, you guys can take it as a startup, right? Even in Swiggy, if you go and do the interview, right, none of their round will be focused on a language. Because I think language is something which keeps on changing. Change is the only constant in the IT field. So if you're thinking that learning different language, like 10 different languages will get you more salary or a better job, I think you are in a wrong direction. This is not what at all it is needed. What is needed is a computer science basics. How do you handle with the data? Because every company is taking a data-driven decision these days. So only requirement from you is that learn one language. You should be only good in one language, and that can be anything. It can be Python, it can be C++, it can be Java. But be good in one language, and that language you should be able to write any code, any question that they ask in these companies like data success algorithm. You should be able to solve that question in that particular language. That is the only expectation. Only thing that is expected from you in any of these high-paying companies is that you should have an aptitude to solve an unknown problem. Right? They not expect you to come and learn a different number of languages. So that is not true at all. So Saurabh Singh has a question, the best platform to do competitive programming. So right now, so I think this is a very good question. So right now in the market, right now, there are multiple competitive programming platforms. But I just want to understand your intention that why do you want to do competitive programming? It can be either because of your interest into the coding and you like competing with the, the other folks in the terms of the programming. So that can be one. And the another thing is that many of the people feel that, if I do competitive programming, I'll get a better job. Right? If you are someone who is in the second category, who's looking for a job but still try to do the competitive programming, I'll tell you, getting, cracking a interview, a coding interview is a totally different ball game than a competitive coding is. The reason I'll tell you, when you're doing a competitive coding, the problem set that you have been asked to solve is well-defined. You have a well-defined input set and you have a well-defined output set, right? So you're trying to solve a well-defined problem. This is one thing. Secondly, whenever you are participating in any competitive programming, at least in the initial rounds, you can always sit in the comfort of your home, your house, or your hostel and solve those problems. But when you go for an interview, the problem that is being asked, most of the time it will be fake. There will be open-ended questions. in which you'll have to apply the brain then and there itself. So that is how the favor changes. The second is that the pressure situation, right? When you are into an interview, there will be some kind gentleman who is sitting over your head and always looking and saying that, hey, your answer is wrong. So you're always in that do or die situation in which you feel whether I'm getting job or not, someone is looking at my head. So in that pressure situation, even a simple question gets tricky or tough. So that these are the two different genres. If you're doing competitive programming just because you love competing with the others in the terms of programming is great, but if you're trying to do competitive programming just for the purpose of getting job, I think that is not very optimal path to prepare for the job or the coding rounds. Cool. So I think I have covered most of the question that I had so far. So let's move on. So a common question that most of the folks have, that what to expect in a coding interview, right? So generally in any coding interview, I'll just try to keep it general. You can expect few coding problems. And when somebody asks you any coding problem, normally they're not just expecting you to solve that problem, but underlyingly they're trying to judge you on these skills. First of all, what is your aptitude, right? So they will, with a given problem, they will try to understand, whether you can think out of box, whether you can think different directions, how do you behave. So aptitude is something which they try to measure the first. The second thing is your attitude, how you behave, how you take up the problem, do you give up, right? So attitude is the second thing that anybody will be judging you. The third one is the analytical skills. Now, what do we mean by the analytical skills? See, these days, everywhere it is data, and a data without analysis is nothing, right? We need to take data, analyze it, and then take a meaning out of it, and then, implement it in our systems. So whenever somebody throws a question at you, you can try to do two things. One is that you directly solve that problem, which any average person will do. And secondly, if you are someone who have an analytical mindset, you will try to analyze the question well, and he will try to solve the problem in the futuristic way, so that he will not only solve the problems in the hand, but also solve in such a way that any future problems that can come around that boundary can also be solved very easily. So that is where the analytical skills are also judged. So when somebody gives you a problem, don't just solve that problem. Try to think holistically around it and give a proper, complete solution, which not only solves the problem in hand, but anything that can come up in the future around that. The fourth one is the problem-solving mindset. With any question, any interview, we're just trying to judge you that, what your mindset is when you're trying to solve a problem. Are you focused? Or are you get deviated? Or, do you ask for the boundary conditions? Do you look for, comprehensive solution to a problem or not? So this is also something, with just a single question on data structures and algorithm, they can also judge you on this problem solving mindsets. And the last and the most important thing is that how do you react to the unknowns? So if you are someone who is planning to, go and work someday for the Google, Microsoft, Facebook, right? So if you think about these companies have already solved all the trivial problems. All the known problems has already been solved. They are working in a direction which nobody has taken before. They are solving unknown problems. They are working with a great scale, right? So if they are hiring someone, they are looking for someone who has this aptitude and has a willingness to solve the unknown problems. If you're someone who get hesitated with the new things, or if some unknown problems comes to your plate, you just get worried and you're not able to solve. I think you need to work on those skills first. Try to develop that aptitude that even if something new comes, with all the learning that you have acquired over a period of time, you just put that into the use and try to solve it. So again, if you're trying to apply for one of those FANG companies, how you react to a problem is also very important. So whenever you are going for a coding interview, they will only be asking you a few coding questions, but underlyingly they will be checking your aptitude, attitude, analytical skills, problem solving mindset, and how you react to the unknowns. Yogesh, yes, you are very right. So, whenever you have to analyze a problem, you have to do a little bit of feature engineering. You'll have to look around it very holistically. You have to think from the eyes of a customer that, if a customer is asking for this problem, what can be extra problem that particular customers, would be, facing or, suffering from. So basically, whenever given a problem, just don't try to solve that problem in the hand. Try to think futuristically, because anybody doesn't hire to someone who if someone is asking you to do a job, they are not expecting that every time they will give you order and then all you will do it. They are expecting that you will be a little proactive. You will take your own decisions and then take up the question and then get started. Then another common doubt, and I want to cover all these doubts in my first session before actually going into the hands-on, so that we don't have these confusions. And also when we are taking up the actual practical questions that comes in the interview, we'll try to again go through these pointers. So I just want to set the context right in the first session so that we all are clear that what we are doing, why we are doing, and how we are doing, right? So another common question is how to approach a problem in the interview. So whenever somebody gives you a question, first of all, the one basic thumb rule is don't make any assumption, right? And even if you're making any assumption, be very clear. Clarify that assumption with the interviewer that, okay, I am thinking that this particular array is immutable. Do you agree? And only if the interviewer says, yes, you can consider it as a immutable, consider it as immutable. Otherwise, don't make any assumption. This is the first rule. The second one is that you should always check for the corner cases, right? Because more than often, as soon as you're done, and if you have given interview in the past, then you must have realized that the first input that the interviewer will give you to dry run will definitely be a corner case itself, because he doesn't have time to test your code on the n different kind of inputs. He will always test your code on a corner cases, right? Boundary cases. So as soon as you're trying to solve a problem, before even starting, think of the corner cases first, think of the boundaries first, right? And try to build your solution around the boundaries, try to build your solution around the corners, and that way you will be able to hit that thing. You will be able to hit that jackpot in which the first time itself when an interviewer is trying to try run your code, he will find your code to be working, right? So the only way to achieve that is that check for the corner cases in the beginning itself. The third one is that once you are done solving a problem, don't just jump to give this solution to your interviewer. I've seen most of my in my interview taking experience, like I've been taking interviews quite few years now. I've seen as soon as student is done with a question, he just throws that answer to me and says, sir, I'm done, can you please look at it? I think that is something wrong. As soon as you're done with the question, the first thing that you should do is that you should do a dry run. You should try to dry run yourself. Take a proper unit case, a unit test, take a proper input which you feel may be a boundary case, have a boundary case, and then try to dry run yourself, and then only you give it to the interviewer and say that, okay, this is my final solution. This way it will help you to improve your silly mistakes, and at the same time it will help to instill the confidence in the interviewer that you are not someone who is just hurrying to throw the solution, but you are also ensuring the quality, right? So this makes sure that you are someone who vouch for the quality product, right? And the fourth and the most important thing which I have seen in few of the folks is that when you start solving problem, you just go mom. You just get lost in your thoughts. Never do that. This is one of the biggest mistake that if you're doing like this is one of the biggest mistake that you're doing in the interview. Say for example, one question has been asked from you, and for the next 20 minutes you are just thinking and thinking and thinking, and unfortunately you're not able to solve the problem. Now just try to understand from the from the shoes of interviewer, what the interviewer will think. This guy was trying the same question for the last 25 minutes. He was not even expressing his thought what he was doing. How I can be sure that he was even knowing this question? He might be just killing the time, right? So that is one of the biggest negative that you can do in an interview. So try to be as expressive as possible. See, the interview is a very small period of time, like it might ideally 40 to 60 minutes of a time, right? So try to make the best out of it. Try to present the best version of yourself in the interview and keep the interviewer interactive, right? Try to keep interacting with him, help him understand that you can think in the n different directions. So what we'll do is that even if you're not able to solve the problem, it will at least give a positive impact. It will instill the confidence in the interviewer that you are someone who, even if the problem is tough, he doesn't give up. You always try to think for the different solutions, and you have a different range, right? Different algorithms, different data structures, and you can move in the different directions to solve a single problem. So I think that is very important. And as I already mentioned at the start, interview giving it is an art. You should know how to drive it. And the day when you know how to drive it is when things become simple. So throughout this coming session, we'll be talking about these things. We'll be doing this session as an interview, as a dummy interviews in which I'll be putting a questions. We'll try to solve it. How should we solve a particular problem in the interview, and how should we keep these points in the mind? So all these things I'll be talking about in the coming session. So please stay tuned for that, and we'll cover all these points in detail. So what all things that we're gonna cover in the coming days? But before that, let me take a few questions. Is data structure enough to get the job in product-based company, or we have to prepare the algorithm tool like dynamic programming? Munna Kumar. So first of all, first of all, data structure and algorithm are both important. Just doing a data structure will not suffice, because what is data structure? Data structure is how you structure the data, yeah? Basically, how you structure the data so that you can store and query it optimally, right? But at the end of the day, just storing will not suffice. I'll have to run some kind of logic on the top of it to solve my real life problem. So for that, algorithm is also important. So to crack any good product based company, you need to have a good data structures and algorithm capabilities. Said that, you said that dynamic programming. So again, dynamic programming is not an algorithm. First of all, I like to make very categorically clear here. The dynamic programming is not a algorithm. It's a programming paradigm. Okay, and we'll be talking about dynamic programming in the future sessions. But yes, I got your point, what you mean to say. And to answer your question, so only data structure will not suffice. We also need to understand the data structures and their implementation, how we can apply the different algorithms to solve any problem. So that is very important. So both data structures and algorithm are equally important for cracking all the coding rounds of any good product based company. Mininath is saying, which language frequently used in the coding interview? So again, as I said, if you take any good company, and I think every one of you should always target the best. Only when you target something beyond, above this level, at least you will get this level, right? So I want everyone, if you try to have a dream companies, like all the FANG companies, you can take it as a dream. And if you consider any of these companies, right, in none of these company language is a constraint. So I don't know why, but many of the folks have, this thing in mind, that what language should I read? I feel there is nothing as such that you should be worried about the language. Even if you're good in JavaScript, even if you're good in Python, that is more than enough. Just try to be good in one single language, and that should be more than enough for cracking your data structures and algorithm problem. Because whenever any company wants you to solve any problem, they will never force you to that you solve in C++ or Java or Python. All the languages are equally fine. But said that, if your question is different, that which language is mostly used in the software development these days, in that case, Java will be the answer, because like Java is used like more than 70% of the company these days for the software development. But as far as the interview is concerned, language is not a constraint at all. Even if you know C++, Python, Java, Scala, Erlang, C, any language that I think that is more than enough. If you are comfortable writing code in that language, that is more than enough. You don't need to focus on multiple languages. And one more thing that I like to suggest you guys is that, to all the folks who are the fresher, or those who are in the mid, like 2-3 years of experience, or those if you are more than 5 or 10 plus years of experience, I have seen, a pattern that, people, once they start working in a service-based companies, and also in few of the product-based companies, they started tagging themselves as some kind of, they will start telling that I am a Java developer, or they will start saying that I'm a C++ developer, or they will start saying I'm a C developer, right? One humble request to all you guys, that stop doing that. Don't tag yourself to a particular technology. You should say that I'm a software developer, right? I'm a software engineer. I'm a general software engineer which solves the problem based on the requirement. I don't try to, enforce Java everywhere. I take a problem, I see what kind of problem it is, and then I think of what is the tech stack which can best justify the solution of it. And then based on that, I take a call whether I should go for C++, whether I should go for Node.js or Java or something like that. So if you want to be, relevant enough in this industry, because as I already said, constant is the, change is the only constant in this IT field. So if you want to stay relevant, try to become a software engineer, not some technology engineer like C++ engineer or Java engineer. Try to be a software engineer, and things will automatically fall in place. So be little agile, be little flexible about, when it comes, what tech stack that you want to work on. How to react to the alien problem statement is spontaneously presented in front of you. Gaurav Kumar, very nice. So I think this is what I was talking about. So when an unknown problem comes to you, right, there can be two ways of dealing with it. First of all, is just say no, that, okay, sir, I don't know this. Can we move to the next question? I think this is one will be the biggest negative that you can do in an interview. Because at the end of a day, if someone is asking that kind of question, his expectation is that if you come and work with him in his company, tomorrow if some kind of unknown problem happens, will you behave the same way? And if you do, then nobody will be accepting that kind of behavior from you. The second way that you can respond is that try to work on it, try to understand it with a more common sense, with all the learning that you have acquired over a period of time. Try to talk more about it with the help of the interviewer. Help him understand that, okay, sir, this is something which I am seeing anew. I am trying to apprehend in this direction. Can you let me know if I'm thinking in the correct direction? So that way you can start a conversation around that particular problem. Try to build a story around that with the interviewer, and then try to apply all the learnings that you have in the past to solve that problem. Many of them, in fact, in my company, when I interview for the LinkedIn, many of times we purposefully ask very difficult question in which we don't expect the interviewee to solve that question. Our only expectation is that to see that how that person reacts. Is he or she giving up directly? If it is, then that is a complete negative for us. But is that person is trying to fight with that question? Is he's trying to investigate more information around that? And if yes, then that is what we are looking for. At the end of a day, we are looking for someone who can come and work in our team and try to solve the unknown problems, because we are at that stage where all the known problems has already been solved. So I hope this answers your question. So moving onwards, so throughout this coming session, so this session is mostly designed for covering what are the different kind of question patterns which are normally asked in the interviews, right? So I have tried to cover these following patterns. So if you cover all the full data structures and algorithm, normally you'll find some kind of patterns, okay? And all the questions will be revolving around these patterns itself. So instead of teaching the complete data structures and algorithm, I think there's another course in which I'm teaching the complete data structure. Here I have taken a different route. It's kind of bottoms up approach, in which what I have done is that instead of picking the topics, I have picked a pattern. Okay, so I have picked like 10, 12 patterns around which the most frequently asked interview questions are these days you can see. So in each of the session, I'll try to pick one pattern and we'll try to solve few problems around that. And I'll help you understand what that pattern is, so that in the future, if somebody asks you any question, you can easily associate it to this pattern and solve it very easily. So we are taking a different route or a different attempt to solve, the interview problems. And I experimented this with many of my students, and they have done great. And I'm working in one of the great companies of this world, like Google, Microsoft, they're everywhere. So I think this has really helped to them. And I feel if you guys also follow this approach, if you have done your data structures and algorithm at least once, I feel this will give you the best output in the minimum amount of time. So the common patterns that I've added here is, the first one is two-pointer approach. The second one is the sliding window concept. So again, you might be finding this logic multiple places. Then third one is thinking recursively. The fourth one is around fast and the slow pointers. This logic you must have used in finding the loops and the middle point of a linked list and all that stuff. So we'll talk about the fast and the slow pointers. Then using the merge concept, right? The merge part of the merge sort, right? Nobody will ask you the merge sort logic, but that logic is being applied in a multiple questions. So we'll talk about what are the patterns where the merge concept will be used. Again, sorting is something nobody will ask you directly, but there are 100 different kind of questions where the sorting can be used. So we'll talk about the sorting concepts. Then reversal concept, right? So reversal in itself is a kind of pattern which can be asked directly, or it can be used indirectly in the different kind of questions. And then we talk about the BFS and the DFS. It is widely used in the case of graph. If you understand breadth first search and depth first search, your graph is almost sorted, and the same thing you can use in the tree also. So we'll talk about the BFS and DFS patterns. Then in the case of the arrays, you'll find so many questions around the subsets. So subset itself is a kind of pattern from which the different kind of problems can be originated or can be asked. So we'll talk about the subset thing as well. And then BST, like binary search tree and its applications. Again, right, around BST, there are so many different variations of questions that is very common these days in the market. So we'll talk about the BST as well. And then finally, top K. So again, there are a few questions that you find me top 5 winners, or top 5 fastest cars, or the top 5, the student in a class, right? So this is another set of questions which is around top K. So these are the few patterns which I have through my experience working over a period of time. I figured out these are the patterns which are mostly being asked in the interviews. And if you know these patterns, understanding the data structures problem, algorithm problems become much simpler. So we'll try to take each of this one after the another. In today's session, we'll be talking about two-pointer approach. But said that, if you guys feel that there's some additional pattern which is missing into this list, and if you want me to cover that, please do comment, and I'll be more than happy to take your guys' suggestion, add it into the list, and make it as a part of this course. So please do comment in the section if you feel that if this the list of patterns that I mentioned is complete, then it's great. But if you feel that you need some extra topics to be added, please feel free to message in the comments, and I will add it and we'll take it in the sessions. Cool, makes sense? Perfect. So today what we'll do is that we'll get started with the two-pointer approach. Okay. We'll try to understand what it is and how to solve it. But before I move on, I'm taking a question from the Santosh. He's asking that how we can develop our coding or algorithm logic ability to solve real world problems. Very nice question and some very practical questions. So see, to solve a real life problem, let's try to first understand what all things that are needed. Okay. First of all, you need to know one language which can mimic the real life world problems, right? So for example, if you say, I'll very succinctly explain this. For example, this programming language has a long history, right? We started with the procedural kind of programming, and before that even we used to do programming in a very low level, right? Because that time mostly the problems were mathematical or empirical, so we used to write in the low level language. Then as and when the more computer became famous, we started doing the procedural programming, like the C language become very famous. That time also there was a limited use of the internet, and still it was doing great. But as and when we moved further, right, this age when everything has become online, right, thanks to the e-commerce, thanks to cab aggregator like Ola, Uber, right, everything that we are seeing these days, dating sites like Tinder, everything has come online, right? So what we are solving today is much more complex than what we are solving like 10 years back. Today what we are doing, we're trying to solve all the real life problems into a internet world, into the programming world. And to do that, the another programming paradigm came into the picture, which was object oriented language, right? So what I feel is that if you want to solve any real life problem, you have to have a very clear understanding of object oriented problem. And that can be any, there's so many object oriented languages right now in the market. For example, Java, most common, C++, Scala, Python even is to some extent is object oriented. So try to have understanding of object oriented language. This will help you to solve a mimic of a real life problem into a programming world. Said that this is one, the language will just help you to write the code, but then you need to write it efficiently. You have to make it scalable, and that is where the data structures and algorithm will really help. Unless until you know what data structures and algorithm is, you may not be able to do justice when you're writing the code. So understand one object oriented language, try to understand the frameworks around that, and then have a very good understanding of data structures and algorithm. But that is not enough to write an application. You also need to store the data. So you should have a very good holistic understanding of the data storage layer as well. So if you know three things: one, good object oriented language, data structures and algorithm, and you also have a very clear idea of which kind of databases to use and when, I think that should be more than enough to to make you well versed with creating the any kind of real life applications. I hope that makes sense, Santosh. And let's move to our first topic, which is two-pointer approach. So here it is, the two-pointer approach, right? So in the first slide, if you guys can see, I have just put down the different kind of questions, and this is just a small subset of that. So these are the different kind of questions. For example, people can ask you that they have given you an array, sorted array, and this is the first one, right? So what they will do is that, for example, this is the first one. I'm talking about this one. People have given you an array, which is a sorted array, and they will ask you, can you get me the two elements on this array whose sum is equal to the given array? For example, if this is the array, right? If this is the array and I'm looking for number 54, right? You have to tell me, is there two elements present in this array whose sum value is equal to 54? I see, yes, there is two elements. One is the 30 and another one is 22, suppose. And suppose it is not 54, maybe it is say 52. So I just typo mistake. Suppose I'm looking for something called 52. So I have a number called 30 and I have a number called 32. So if I add these two numbers, I get 52. So I know that there are two elements in this array whose value sum is equal to 52, right? So this kind of questions. Another kind of question is that you have been given a sorted array, and you have to again square all the elements, but after squaring all the elements, it should be in a sorted. So this is another type of question that can that can be solved with the base of the two-pointer approach. Another one is that you have been given an array in which you have to remove the duplicate. So for example, here 3 has appeared 3 times, 9 has appeared 2 times, right? So if I have to convert that, I have to remove all the duplicates. So final results will be 2, 3, 6 and 9, right? So again, these kind of problems can be solved using the two-pointer approach. Another famous problem is that you will be given 0 and 1, and then you have to convert into the 0 and 1. Another variation of this is that you may have the 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, and you will be asked to convert that into all the 0 first, then all the 1s, and then all the 2s, like this. So there's another variation of this. This again can be solved very efficiently using the two-pointer approach. Another proper variation of this two-pointer approach problem is that you are given an array. So for example, you will give an array like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you are told that you can pick any 3 elements from this array, and you have to tell me whether the given sum is available or not. So for example, it is said that whether if I can take 3 elements from this array and make the sum equals to 9. So if I take 2, if I take 3 and I take 4, if I add 2, 3 and 4, it becomes equals to 9. So like, there's so many different variations of the question that can be solved with just single approach, which is known as the two-pointer. So in the today's session, we'll try to talk about what this two-pointer approach is. We'll try to solve few of the problems and try to understand how can I apply a two-pointer approach. If you have any questions as such as now, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll keep on moving. So let's move on to our next slide. Let's try to first understand what is two-pointer approach and what should we do. So I'll try to keep it very practical, very simple. And once you understand what this two-pointer approach is, I think all the questions that I enlisted on our first slide, you will be able to solve it very simply, very quickly, right? So please pay very good attention now, because I'm going to talk about that. How do we decide that first I have to apply two-pointer approach, and second, how do I apply the two-pointer approach? Right? Two things are very important for any concept. First of all, you should be very clear of when to apply that, and second one is how to apply it, right? So first of all, let's try to talk about when can I apply the two-pointer approach. So to apply the two-pointer approach, the very first condition that is needed is that the array should be sorted. Array should be okay. So this is the first condition that is needed if you want to apply a two-pointer approach. But before moving on, let me take a question. I think there are a few questions. So the question is, English important in coding interviews. If I'm good at coding but can't speak in English properly, will it be a problem? So Pratibha, see, to be very frankly speaking, most of these companies these days are multinational. Okay, they are the MNCs, and you need to actually communicate yourself to your counterparts which might be living in the UK or in the different zone, and the common medium of instruction in that is English. So yes, said that English is very important, but said that it is not the end of the world, right? Nobody wants you to be Sasi Tharoor in English if you are going for a coding round. So a basic understanding of English is sufficient, and you can always if you can always compensate one thing over the another. So if you feel that your communication skills are little down, little savvy as of now, I need to work on it, you can always compensate your communication skill with the logic that you can demonstrate in the interview. Okay, you can always amaze the person sitting next to you with your logical thinking, with the problem solving skills, and that will definitely compensate with your English, a little lack of the ability in the English. So I don't think that if you don't know, if you don't know, or you are not very fluent in English, that will be any great hindrance in your career. Said that, try to work on it, try to improve it over day, but you will have to compensate it with a better logical ability, with a better way of expressing your thought in the interviews. How to make technology transition easier to the new tech, especially if you are working on old language like C, C++. Yeah, so Gaurav Kumar, I think this is again a very serious question, and I think very common question. And most of the people are suffering from this technology transition problem. The reason being that they have always tagged themselves as a C++ engineer, C# engineer, or Java engineer. The only way to overcome this kind of bridge is that always try to consider yourself as a software engineer, and accept that if you have to survive, if you have to make a mark in this IT field, you have to stay on your toe. You have to keep learning things. Never take it for granted. Never think that I'm working on a C++, so all my life I will be good enough to work on C++ only, right? Even if you're working on a C++, now try to be little abreast with the later tech step. Try to learn few things around. But if you're not done so far, see, there's nothing called you're too late, right? So you can still start from the today. But what I'll suggest you guys from is that try to move away from this stigma or the tag of a C++ or C# engineer. Try to be a software engineer, even if you're working on one domain and maybe you are there working for the last 6 or 1 year, 2 year of time. try to, whenever you get some time, try to learn something new, try to build some projects out of it, try to see what is there relevant in the market. Okay, build some projects out of there, put on the GitHub. See, these days, I feel engineers are nothing less than a brand, right? And for a for a brand to be more valuable in the market, you have to do two things. The first thing is that you have to add value to this brand. That how will you do? With all the practice and the hard work that you do. And the second one is the networking, the campaigning. You need to advertise your brand, and that how you do that. We can only do when you have done the things, you put that on your GitHub, put that on the LinkedIn, connect to the people, find mentors, talk to the peoples, and that is how you can sell yourself. You are a brand and you should know how to advertise yourself. So that is how you should take it up. In case of separating 0, 1, 2 arrays is not sorted, why we applied 2-pointer search? So Harshit, I will be taking this question and we'll see that how we can use 2-pointer approach to solve this problem. Now this point 1, I said array should be sorted. This is the first thing, but this is not mandatory. Like in most of the cases, when you apply it, when you apply the 2-pointer approach, normally the prerequisite is array is sorted, but for everything there is some exception, right? So this problem will act as an exception in which even if the array is not fully sorted, I can still apply this. So I think that is the exception for this Harshit Jindal. I am a data engineer, mainly work on big data ETL. Do I also have to prepare coding interviews if you want to switch job? See, again, for a data engineers, again, it's very important. See, if you're a data engineer, don't just think that, I'm just working on the Hadoop frameworks, I'm working on the Spark, I'm working on the Hive or all the big data tech stack, right? At the end of the day, you're actually dealing with the data, and data has to be optimally stored and it has to be optimally retrieved, right? And that can only be done if you have a very good understanding of data structures and algorithms. So if you're trying to apply in any good company who actually are looking for a genuine candidates, they will not be only asking you, to write some kind of problems or the jobs around the Spark or something like that, or only the Spark internals, but they will definitely judge you in some coding skills, the data structures and algorithm thing. So my answer to is yes, this data structures and algorithm is something which is very core to everyone. So if you are someone who is in the IT field and you want to make something good in this career, not in the terms of only getting the high salary or getting a good job, but also at the end of the day, every day when you write code in your company, you want to feel satisfied, you want to solve the problem, you want to scale your system. I think this is something you must invest in and try to learn this at the So I hope this answer your question, and then let's move on. So the first thing is that array should be sorted. This is the first thing, but again, this is not always needed, but in like most of the cases, if the array is sorted, this gives us a clear hint that we need to apply the 2-pointer approach. This is the first thing. The second thing is that in a 2-pointer approach, so since the array is sorted, so I have an array like this. Okay, and suppose it has elements like this 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and suppose it is 11. Okay, and what I do is that in a 2-pointer approach, as I said, what I do is that I normally try to keep one pointer, okay, pointer 1 in the beginning, and another pointer I try to take in the end. This is how we normally do a pattern. So this is a common pattern in all the 2-pointer approach problems. We take an array is normally sorted, and we keep a pointer in to the first position and keep the another pointer at the last position, right? And based on what the problem is trying to solve, asking me to solve, I will try to move this problem pointer to the right, and I'll try to move this pointer to the left. This is what I'll do in all the 2-pointer approach problems. Very simple, right? Only 2-step thing that you have to do in every problem which is asking you to solve a 2-pointer approach. The first thing is that normally the questions array will be normally sorted. We'll see. There are a few cases in which even if it is not sorted, we can still apply the 2-pointer approach, right? But those are the exceptions, and we'll see those exceptions as well. But in most of the cases, it will be sorted. And in those sorted arrays, you will have picked the 0th index as your first pointer and the last index as your last pointer. And based on what problem that you have to solve, you have to move this first pointer to the right and the right pointer to the left. This is how you have to move it. So this is normally what we try in each of the questions, right? Cool. So this is about, and it's just that. This is all the theory about the 2-pointer approach, and we'll try to now solve more and more problems and see practically how it affects. So let's move on. So let's try to first solve this problem. So the problem is on a screen, and what it says is that, just correct this, this should be 50 52. This is not 54, this is 52. Okay, so what it is saying that I have an array, and the array has the element like 10, 20, 28, right? I have 29, I have 30, and I have 40. Okay, and then I'm saying that is there any two elements present in this array? Is there any two elements present in this array? Okay, whose value is equals to 52. Whose value is equal to 52. And in this question, we have been also told that this array is already sorted. Okay, this array is already sorted. This has already been told to us. Okay, it has already told us its array is already sorted. So as I can see, yes, this array is already sorted. From here to here, if we go, all the elements are already increasing. So now let's try to apply our two pointer approach in this. So what happens in the two pointer approach? I take two elements. This is my first pointer. Okay, so I call it as I equals to 0. Suppose this is the index, right? So the I is my first pointer, which is I equals to 0, and I take this another pointer and I take as a j, and the value of j I put as, so if the index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so the value of j is equals to 5. Okay, so I have an array. I have taken the starting pointer, I have taken the end pointer, right? And what I do is that let me try to find the sum now. Okay, so what I do is array I plus array j, and I try to find what is the sum value of the sum now. So if I do array I plus array j now, I get a value of what? 50. And what I have to find? I have to find 52, right? Now this 50 is less than 52, right? This 50 is less than 52. Now if array 50 is less than 52, should I move I to the right or should I move j to the left? Please comment this in the comments. What do you guys think? If I have to increase the value of ai plus aj, should I move I to the right or should I move j to the left? Ideally, since I have to increase the value since it is a sorted array, so if we move from the left to right, the value should gradually increase. So what I'll do is that I'll try to move this I one place. So I will become equals to 1 now. Okay, so again, the next time what I'll do, first time I did this, second time again did, array value of I is 1, so array I plus value of j right now is again 5, and becomes equals to how much? 22 plus 40. Now 22 plus 40 now becomes equals to 62, and 62 is greater than 50. So now the sum that I got is more than 52. So I have to reduce this sum. So what should I move now? Now I should move j to the left. So j value should now get decreased from 5. So it should become to 4 because now j is this one, right? Again, I try to figure it out. Array 1 plus array 4. Okay, so array 1 is 22 and array 4 is 30, right? And I got what? 52. And this 52 is equals to 52. So I said that, yes, I got the answer. Yes, I got the answer. And this is how we normally follow in the two-pointer approach. So this is the logic that we take to solve a two-pointer problem. So the problem statement was I have an array. It is already sorted. I have to figure it out if there is two elements present in the array which is equal to the given sum. We can use this logic of two-pointer approach to solve this in O of n time complexity. A brute force way of solving this problem would have been, if somebody is not aware of this, this two-pointer approach, a brute force way of solving this problem would have been like this. So what would happen, a brute force way? So for example, if I have an array like this, once again, if I have an array like this, say 1, 7, 9, 12, 15. If you don't know a two-pointer approach, normally a student what it will do is that it will write code like this: for int I equals to 0, I is less than array dot length I plus plus, right? And then it will write another loop here for int I equals to 0, j equals to 0, maybe I plus 1, j equals to I plus 1, j is less than array dot length j plus plus, and then he will try to find if array I plus array j is equal to given number. This is normally a student will write if he doesn't know the two-pointer approach. But this problem also solves the same problem, but the problem here is that the time complexity will be equals to O of n square, because I'm using a two loops, and this kind of solution is known as a brute force way of solving the same problem. But if I have to write the same problem, right? If I have to write this, if I have to solve the same problem, using the two-pointer approach, we can write the code like this. So what I can do is that in this case, if the two-pointer approach, if I have to use, so suppose I have a function public, void find two numbers, and I have been given an array which is sorted, that is already been told, and this is a number that I'm trying to look for. What I do is I have to find two pointers. So I find the first pointer at 0th position. I take the another pointer j at the last position, as I already discussed. So that will be array dot length minus 1, and then I can write a loop here while I is less than j, till the time the value of I is less than j. And then what I do, if array I plus array j is equals to number, it means that I have found that number, and I can simply print the number I and j. Print array I, array j, right? Else if it is not equal to number, the another possibility is that array of I plus array of j will be less than the number. This is the another possibility, and if it is less, it means that I have to move. So for example, if this array is like this, 1 2 3 4 5, right? Initially my I is here and j is here. If the value of I plus j is less than the required number, I have to move in the right direction. So what I do is that I do I plus plus. But if it is neither equal to number, neither it is less than number, it means it is greater than number. In that case, what I need to do, I do else, and I do j minus minus, j minus minus. So this way, I get to know, what are the two numbers which together make a combined number, which we are looking for in that particular array. And since in this, the only one loop is required, so the time complexity for this problem comes out to be O of n. So if you know the two-pointer approach, we can solve these pointers, type of questions very efficiently in a better time complexity. So this is just one example, and in the coming sessions, we'll try to solve more problems on this two-pointer approach. I will encourage you guys to come and register on the Great Learning site, because if you register there, you will be getting the assignments post every sessions around all these coding patterns. And you guys can practice those problems, and every session, in the beginning 5 minutes, I'll try to quickly go through each of the assignments and help you understand if you're ever, if you're blocked somewhere. Said that, you can also use the comment section of each of the video to ask your questions. You can use it as a kind of discussion thread, and I'll try to look through each of your comments or your question, or someone, if you're not able to ask your question throughout this session in the live, or maybe I was not able to answer it. What I'll do, please write your questions in the comments so that I will go through each of them, and I'll try to personally write the response to query of each of you people. So I'll just try to see a few more questions that I've got. Sir, in online coding, we won't be able to know J value as sample cases are hidden. To know the J value, we do traverse it. Does this reduce the efficiency? So very nice question. So in few of the cases, you don't know what your J is. In few of the cases, you don't know what your J is. So there is another approach that we follow to do it, and I think that is something which I've already covered. So there can be two cases. One is when which both the ends of the array, and this is how you solve in that case. But certain cases you don't know your right end, that where it is. So there is a very efficient way of figuring that out, and I have already covered that as a part of session. So please bear with me. Please wait for that session, and we'll be discussing that in that particular session. And it's coming in the next to next session itself. If I solve the problem using for loop within the for loop, will it make any difference? Yes, Saurabh, it will make a difference, because that will have a higher time complexity, as I already explained in the previous slide. If you write 2 for loops, the time complexity will come O of n square, which is not acceptable, right? Everyone these days is worried about their time. Time is the most expensive thing, so you have to solve the questions very efficiently. Cool. I hope I have answered most of you guys' problem. This is just the beginning, guys. We are gonna cover more and more number of questions. All the questions which are actually very important for the interview. So please feel tuned in. You have any questions or any doubts which have not been able to ask, please feel free to comment on the YouTube itself. You guys can also feel free to connect with me on the LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy. You know, I've been helping students and professionals for so many years now. So I feel free to connect me on the LinkedIn itself. If you have any doubts, I'll be more than happy to help you guys. Said that, thanks a lot. Great learning. I think this is a great initiative. You guys should make a best out of it. Join the courses, enroll to it, and you will get the regular notification about all the different courses that this platform is bringing up. And try to solve the assignment together with all these sessions, so that you are in the space, and we'll try to solve your doubt as much as possible. And the last thing, if you want me to add any of the new problem patterns which if you feel is not included in the list that I'm planning to cover, feel free to put that into the comments. So we'll try to take up cognizance of that, and we'll add into our agenda. That's all. I think that's for the day, guys. Thanks a lot for joining. Have a great time. Stay safe, stay indoors. Thank you.